So back in 2013, a film came out that was filmed inside of the Disney theme parks that was done without the approval of Disney themselves. It's a horror film, and today we're going to be talking about that movie. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video, and in today's video we're going to be talking about a film that was done without Disney's approval that is known as Escape from Tomorrow. Written and directed by Randy Moore, this film stars people like Roy Abramsohn, Elena Schuber, Jack Dalton, Caitlin Rodriguez, and many more. And before we get too far into this, I'd like to say a big thanks to my guest who's joining me here in this video, and that is my buddy Dave from Interpreting the Stars. As usual, it's always a pleasure to have him here on the channel, and you guys can find the link to his channel down below in the description box. He's got a great catalog of movie reviews over on his channel where he breaks down films in a very meticulous fashion, and I definitely wanted to have him on for this review because of the nature of what this movie is all about. As I mentioned in the intro, this is a film that Disney did not approve of that was filmed within their Disney parks, most notably Disneyland and the Magic Kingdom here in Central Florida. And I remember when this film was initially being talked about online, I was intrigued just on the premise that there was an offbeat horror film that was being filmed, again, on Disney property without their consent. The fact that they were able to even do this, the fact that this filmmaker and these people involved didn't just get sued outright for it. Maybe they did. I don't necessarily find anything online that Disney had done anything like that. And the fact that they were able to just release this in any capacity is crazy. Now, this film is not very easy to find, which is what I discovered as I was planning to do this review. And then when I went to go actually watch it, where it was available online, it wasn't actually available to purchase or rent, which was kind of shocking to me, as I originally saw this film back when it came out in 2013 on Netflix for a very brief window of time when it was on there. I don't necessarily know that Netflix would want to have this movie on their platform anymore today because Disney would probably come for them, but this must have just been in a different time where they were able to get away with it for a short period of time. And what I'll start this off with right out of the gate is that I think the most impressive part about this movie is the fact that they were able to do this. The fact that they were able to go into these iconic Disney parks and they had to film it guerrilla style. You know, the cast had to have their scripts on their phones. They had to just have a small group of individuals who were filming this movie and try to make it look like they were just filming normally within Disney instead of actually filming in the parks themselves. And most of the film is shot within the Disney parks or Disney hotels, with there only being a couple of shots where they have to use really noticeably bad green screen with just a shot of Disney in the background or certain locations in Disney in order to get away with it. I think they also filmed portions of this movie in Epcot as well, but most notably, again, throughout the various Disney theme parks, but they make it seem like they're at one Disney theme park. And if you're familiar with Epcot, Magic Kingdom, Disneyland, you'll be able to tell the difference of the different parks that they're actually in. So I think going back and revisiting it, I was still impressed by that. And when I saw it originally, I never thought it was a great movie per se, but I was so impressed by the fact that they were able to pull this off. And it was nice to see these locations I'm familiar with that I kind of feel like I gave it a bit of a positive vibe in my head, or more of a positive outlook, even though I knew the movie wasn't necessarily great. Because going back and revisiting it now, outside of the filmmaking that was done to make this movie a reality, I can ultimately say that this movie is pretty piss poor when it comes to its dialogue, its performances, and its overall narrative. As for me, it really is incredibly hollow and something that was built more so on just a weird shock value kind of thing. And even on that level, I don't necessarily know that it works. The base premise of this movie is you hone in on a family who's going to Disney, of course, to spend some time all together, and things start to get a little bit strange not too long into this experience, most notably for the husband, who starts to notice that some of the animatronics on some of the rides are starting to have creepy faces. His son is a little offbeat, showing moments where his son has black eyes. And there's moments where he's even seeing other guests at the Disney theme park whose faces would warp into some sort of creature. And he's starting to recognize that something wrong is going on here at Disney. While that's all going on, Jim, the main character, the dad in the situation, played by Roy Abramsohn, is a pedophile. And he's pretty much just following around these two young teenage girls throughout the entirety of the film, completely neglecting his kids and completely neglecting his wife, who apparently knows that he does this kind of thing. And you have this this really offbeat, weird horror film where things are going creepy throughout Disney World. He's following these teenage girls, and he's kind of dealing with this broken marriage that he's got going on. His wife doesn't really play much of a role in the movie other than just kind of being the mom who's being cheated on, and she kind of knows that she's being cheated on, or that her husband is a bit of a scummy guy. And there's really not much more to it other than a series of just random events with random characters that are either kind of just offbeat, creepy, and more than anything, this film just tries to kind of lean into the idea that there's something creepy and dark and kind of twisted going on behind the walls of Disney, which I guess depending on who you speak to, they might say that that is actually valid. For me, this movie on a lot of levels just doesn't work. It's just a movie that, again, is built on shock value at times, and I think the fact that it was filmed within the Disney parks and the fact that they were even able to pull this off is the only real thing about this movie that in any way, shape, or form is allowed to be something you can praise, in my opinion. Because for me, when it comes down to the dialogue, when it comes down to the performances, when it comes down to narrative structure, it's just a very bizarre and strange film that doesn't really have a coherent narrative, and the only consistent thing that I can really genuinely say that this film has is this man that's literally walking around the Disney theme parks, most notably to follow other girls, these two young girls. And there's some weird, creepy moments where he's fantasizing riding rides with them and him kind of being accepted by them and that they want to be with this middle-aged man that's with his children. It's very odd. It's very strange. It makes me question 100% the filmmakers and what their outlook on the world is, outside of just pulling off this film that in and of itself is, of course, already illegal. It's against the rules. I wish that they had created an actually interesting, or at least just bare bones horror film that takes place within Disney, because then this film could have a unique identity of not only having been filmed within Disney property without their consent, but also would have had at least some sort of story that you could follow. Whereas in the case of this movie, they pulled it off, but what they actually pulled off is just kind of weird and off-putting and just pedophilic, to be honest. There's nothing about it that really is gripping or exciting, and I feel like it's really a wasted opportunity because of how much of this movie hones in on the fact that this guy is following these young girls throughout the entirety of the film and fantasizing about them while neglecting his kids and 110% neglecting his wife. Now, quite frankly, I don't have an abundance more to even say on this movie. It was just something I knew I wanted to cover here on the channel at some point, and I knew I had to have somebody else on to talk about it, and so that's why I have my buddy Dave from Interpreting the Star here to talk about the movie, and we're going to go ahead and pass it off to him right now, and then we'll get back to my final thoughts and wrap this video up.
Hello, Anthony. What's up? It is I, Dave, back on your channel and on break at work. That's why I'm in the car, so bear with me. But we're here to talk about yet another oddball film. You know, what's really funny, every time somebody suggests that I go on their channel to talk about another film, oftentimes there's a theme running. Like when I joined Rashad over on his channel, Rashad G Reviews, we usually talk about something mafia or gangsta related. If I go over to Did You See That, Mike's channel, what do? I talk about literally the most terrible film that he can manage and muster to conjure up for us to watch. Anthony, you're interesting given the fact that the movies that you suggest we watch usually range in the department of should be good technically, but oftentimes is not, like all those underworld films, crap city, right? And then the DC adaptations of Swamp Thing, double crap. And as far as all the Disney Channel films, I mean, those are just weak sauce, you know? And here we go again with Escape from Tomorrow, a Disney-esque film that has me scratching my head. Let's get cracking. Escape from Tomorrow is about a dad that takes his entire family to Disney World after he was fired from his job. When he shows up there, he starts stalking a couple of really cute French girls, and while he's doing that, he starts having a bunch of different hallucinations and a bunch of really, really bad things happen, and it turns into a horrible, no good, very bad day. Alright, so let's be clear about this film. When people are talking about it, they're not talking about what it's about. They're talking about the gimmick that it is. That it is a film that was shot at Disney World, Disneyland, on location behind Disney's back. They did not get their permission, and past that, they took the film out of the country in order to edit it to completion because they were petrified of the idea that Disney would track them down and then bombshell them with a huge litigation suit, whatever you want to call it, in an attempt to silence and make sure that the film never sees the light of day, yada yada yada. The reality is that Disney did nothing. It's not that they didn't care. I think it's more along the fact that obviously there's no such thing as bad press, and this entire movie is essentially a commercial for Disneyland. Or Disney World, same thing. I'm actually less shocked at the fact that Disney didn't sue them, that I am shocked that the people in the background of the film didn't sue them, because there's no way they got all these people to sign off on being in the movie. And yet, I still didn't really see people in the background with blurred faces like you normally would see. I used to work at a news station, and we couldn't even film kids during kids' events. Like, there's rules in place, and you're talking about a theme park where kids are running amok. So I don't know how they got away with that. So I'm kind of curious on what the story is there. Now I'm going to talk about some of the positives to see in this film. It is shot in black and white, and not just, let me just remove the color black and white. We're talking about pre-planning to the upteenth degree. Like, they wouldn't shoot at all unless the sun was at the right spot in the sky in order for the film to look right in black and white. And I thought that was a really, really cool factoid about this movie. Another thing is that the message of this film is that obviously when it comes down to Disney, you got a lot of Disney magic. When you go to Disney World, all your dreams and all of your imaginations become reality, right? That's the idea of Disney World. But what happens if you're not just an innocent kid? What happens if you're a not so innocent adult? What if you're a perv, right? I would imagine that because you're in Disney World, all your dreams and imaginations still become reality. It's just, it's less of a dream world as it is a nightmare, right? I think that the concept there is brilliant, but the way that they try to explain it in the movie sucks. It's horrible. I was utterly confused with this film, and I went online later and I looked up ending explain videos, I looked up its Wikipedia page, all this, and none of these sources really did the best job of explaining it, but it was a little bit more clear than the movie itself. Because when I was actually watching it, the second half of the film, I had no idea what was going on. I think a mass majority of people, when they watch this film, are not going to fully understand it. I think a mass majority of people are going to watch it and just think, this movie sucks, it's trash. And I understand where they're coming from, and I kind of want to agree with them. It's just that most people won't understand the limitations that these people had to have when they made the movie. For instance, if you shoot a movie guerrilla style and you're shooting the entire thing on your cell phone, the entire script is also on your cell phone, you have to imagine there's not enough time in the day to set up shots in the perfect possible light. There's also not enough time to reshoot the same scene over and over and over again so that your performances stand out as good. They had limited time to do all this. So a lot of the performances stand out as crappy because of it, in my opinion. I think it's because of their limitations. Also, you could tell when they needed prolonged conversations in certain scenes that those would be on green screen with a background of video of, you know, Disney World or whatever. And I almost want to say the prolonged shot of Disney World was shot in a weird angle so that, you know, to avoid suspicion, while the green screen stuff that they shot was normal angle stuff, and part of your brain picks up on things that don't quite work. That's why the green screen stands out as obvious. So as a filmmaker myself, I can see the commitment. I can see the hard work that was put into the film. I can see the challenges and the obstacles that they had to overcome. And I gotta, you know, honestly, I gotta give them a standing ovation for such, because it was actually well done if you look at it that way. However, from the other side of the spectrum, if you're also joining every other person watching this movie, you might watch it and think, you know what? I'm glad they put all this work into it, but the movie still sucks. And I kind of agree with that. So as a fellow filmmaker, I don't want to say this movie's crap, it's going to get an F letter grade, because I do think certain things behind the scenes deserve praise. That's why I scored this movie. I can't snap with my left hand. A C+, letter grade, final overall score of 67%. 67 out of 100 possible stars. To be fair, I think that this is not only a nice score, I actually think it's a very, very kind score specifically because I didn't like the movie. I thought that it was crap. I agree with most people when they watch it and they're like, oh god, this is garbage. But again, I have to say that I appreciate the technical sides of this film that are actually pretty decent. It's just easy to overlook, to be honest with you. Anthony, thank you for having me on. I have to get back to work, but those were my quick thoughts on this film. I know it wasn't that quick, but it is what it is. I'm just glad that the movie's over, and I'm done talking about it. I'm gonna hand it back your way to finish out your thoughts on Escape from Tomorrow, because now that I've escaped from the film, I don't have to watch it anymore. Take it away, Ants. Any?
A big thanks to Dave for joining me here for another video. Always a pleasure to have you on, my friend, and yeah, I'm glad that you were able to kind of, similar to me, take away some of the positives when it comes to the filmmaking side of things. I know that also, like you mentioned, you're a filmmaker as well, so being able to pull this off was something I knew was going to be, at least to somewhat degree, impressive to you, and the fact that they were able to do this. But yeah, I think we have similar opinions on the overall story, narrative, and the dialogue and all that kind of stuff. The film is, again, just solely impressive in the fact that it exists because of how they made it, but you almost really wish that they would have used that opportunity to create something with slightly memorable characters, slightly memorable performances, and a slightly memorable narrative to any way, shape, or form. There's really nothing more to this movie that is really to be said. It's a creepy, just weird kind of movie, but not creepy in the horror sense that you really want it to be, more so because your main character in the film is a creep. This movie is just kind of uncomfortable to watch in a lot of ways, and I can totally understand why a lot of platforms wouldn't want to rent or have this movie available for purchase, not only because of the Disney side of things, but also because of the subject matter. It is a strange combination of pedophilia and Disney that I guess some people might actually agree with, but quite frankly for me, it just comes off in this incredibly bizarre and strange way with a very incoherent narrative. So that's going to be our thoughts on Escape from Tomorrow. Again, not an abundance to say here with this movie, but ultimately something I wanted to talk about here on the channel, and it's something I've always wanted to cover. Have you seen Escape from Tomorrow? It's something you're interested in, whatever the case may be. Leave any and all comments down below. Let me know what you guys think about this movie if you have checked it out. And yeah, honestly, I don't even think it's worth watching, to be completely and utterly honest. I think you have to be a big Disney fan, maybe, to just want to see how they pulled it off. But other than that, I feel like if you go into this movie expecting anything good, you're going to be pretty disappointed. So a big thanks to you guys for watching. Hit that like button, comment your thoughts, subscribe for more videos, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.